Hello everybody, my name is Valentina Quafredda and I am PhD student in Global Studies, Economy, Society and Law at Urbino University Carlo Bo in Italy. The title of my presentation is Farmers and Natural Resources in Ethiopian Green Plans. Through a rhetoric analysis of institutional narratives contained in the National and Federal Climate Resilience Green Economic Plan and in Green Legacy campaign, I intend to show how, in Ethiopian environmental discourse, sustainability of farmers' activity and conservation of natural resources have not centrality and rather are subordinate and functional to other goals, economic growth and political message. Let us start seeing the environmental framework in Ethiopia. Like many other countries in tropical and equatorial areas, Ethiopia is one of the richest biodiversity hotspots on the planet, with many cultivated and an immense wealth of wild plants. Since 1972, the country has ratified many multilateral environmental agreements and treaties, and from the 1995 Constitution, Article 43, 44, 89, 91, 92, Ethiopia has been committed defending its natural resources, and in 1997 environmental policy for the first time, natural resources were recognized as the foundation of the Ethiopian economy. Nevertheless, the country's ecological system is fragile and vulnerable to various challenges: declines in soil fertility, water quality, loss of biodiversity, deforestation, soil erosion, land degradation, chronic problems that further expose the country to droughts, floods, and dramatic famine. And climate change makes such phenomena more frequent and harmful. Ethiopia has officially recognized the importance to face climate change causes and effects by ratifying the Kyoto Protocol on April 14, 2005. Then, in 2015, the Regional Environmental Protection Authority, which became the Ministry of Environment and Forests in 2013, was renamed and restructured as the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And on March 9, 2017, Ethiopia ratified Paris Agreement, committing to keeping the heat below 1.5 degrees centigrade. Climate change recognition becomes a powerful tool, a passepartout, invoked to cover the traces of historical and institutional responsibilities. Exposure to climate risk certainly stems from geography, but the explanation is partial and insufficient. Indeed, as Girma Kebede argues, with a large geographical area, high agricultural potential, and substantial energy and mineral wealth, the country has high potential for sustained development. But from the imperial feudal system to the resettlement visualization implemented by Derg regime in 70s to the current land system, precise political choices of exploitation and non-sustainability have been made. Those are still perceived and recounted as natural and inevitable by peasant and institutions to cope with the population growth and the need for more reliable land, fuel and construction wood. Levels of exhausting and massive deforestation had become so critical that there was a shortage of trees to build the empire's new capital, Addis Ababa. And in 1894-95, Emperor Menelik declared all forests, including trees on private lands, state property. The felling of some species of trees, Cordia juniper, has been banned, and it has been decided to import eucalyptus trees from Australia. Eucalyptus is a lucrative species called selfish trees, whose spread was promoted until not so long ago by academic research and development institutions, including Alemania College of Agriculture, Institute of Agricultural Research, and Kilau Agricultural Development Unit. And nowadays, eucalyptus represent a threat to the already proven Ethiopian ecosystems. Thus, institutional and environmental management have strongly contributed to natural resources destruction and degradation, which is added climate change as major development challenge to Ethiopia. With rising temperature and high variability rainfall patterns, climate change is presenting itself as a dramatic destabilizing force due to country's total dependence on rain-fed agriculture, which is also the backbone of the Ethiopian economy. Agriculture and forest sector combined contribute over 35% of GDP, serving as the sources of 80% of export earnings, but an even important fact from social perspective, they employ about 60% of the workforce. Therefore, in 2011, Ethiopia, under the leadership of Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, has formulated the policy of climate resilience green economy with three goals interconnected. These are the first, economic growth, that is by 2025 becoming a middle-income country. The second, one non-net increase in greenhouse gas emission from 2010 level. And the third, building climate resilient green economy by intervening with a specific strategy on forest and agriculture, which are essential for the economy and the biggest contribution to greenhouse gas emission, more than 18% in Ethiopian case 10 years ago. With an integrated approach between agriculture and forest, on one hand, the plan provides in agriculture improving crop and livestock production, practice for higher food security and farmer income while reducing the emission, and on the other hand, is protecting and establishing forests and for their economic and ecosystem service and carbon stocks with reforestation and land restoration, especially in degraded land. On this last point, I haven't seen reforestation operation and replacement of eucalyptus tree with another non-native species, also from Australia, the Acacia decurrens, in Forward and East Gojam zone, Amara region, where I'm doing my fieldwork research. And this integrated approach, like I haven't said, of agriculture and forest, is something that needs to be kept in mind because I will be back there in a bit. CRG plan has been received very positively because it shows the government's will to engage environmental issues, the awareness of not even to chase the events of weather variability, but to plan activities to counter them. In Lemlem Tayebe's word, is probably the major fundamental initiative Ethiopian adopted recently. But CRGE, as with all its strategic documents, remain a purely economic program. There is a removal of the deep and structural causes of Ethiopian environmental situation, aspects related to history, politics, legislation. The focus is not on agriculture and forest resources and actors, the farmers per se, but on their importance for the economic discourse, increasing production, exploiting existing natural resources, market utilization. Therefore, with such premises are understandable sentences that reduce the drought impact, for example, to percentage points of loss of GDP, and only in addition, the talik is mine, to consequences on agriculture livelihoods. In this sense, it's necessary to continue the reflection started in 2007 by Jonathan Mickey, European Commission delegate to Ethiopia, when he had already foreseen the consequences of the green rush. That is the combination of financing sources, including public and private, as well as domestic and international. This characterized the CRGE plan to the tune of $6 billion per year for 15 years. When Makin wrote, an increase in privatization of public communally managed natural resources, spring, forest, grazing areas, parks, minerals, was already underway. And he urged monitoring the direction taken by Ethiopian environmental policy. He was concerned by an economics vision that permeates the plan's objective and strategies preceding the CRGE, i.e. Sustainable Development and Poverty Reduction Program, then Plan for Accelerate and Sustainable Development to End Poverty. Mackey's worries were widely confirmed by the Investment Proclamation number 769 of 2012. Now, having analyzed the vision of environmental resources, the second aspect of CRGE rhetoric that I would like to emphasize concerns the farmer's image. They are figures listed for completeness of picture more than for depth of analysis. Farmers are wrapped in the common vagueness of other categories. They are placed alongside such as women, youth, elderly, persons with disability, and environmental refugees. Their participation must be obtained to reduce vulnerability, seen often as victims of climate change. except then their practice of resilience and resistance are recognized but blamed and pointed out as responsible, as not sustainable because their activities contribute to the increasing degradation and vulnerability of soil resources. Aimed, yes, to build economic growth, a common goal of government, but the immediate one, not the green one. These rhetorics of making farmers responsible for the country's environmental problem are also enacted in the discourse and practice of institutions at zone and Woreda level. Also tangible on the ground is the absence of building a more efficient agriculture that involves increasing the productivity of farmland and livestock rather than increasing the area under cultivation or the number of livestock. This is much more complex and costly operation than the more immediate, one might say, reforestation and restoration of degraded areas, which the most implemented part of CRGE. Somehow, in the official's imagination, whose high turnover does not play into valuable institutional memory, the focus on forests stems from the strong impetus given by Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed. On July 29, 2019, he launched the Green Legacy Campaign for green development of the country, which scheduled planting 200 million trees in a day and breaking the plantation record held by India. The tree planting campaign is not a new practice in Ethiopia, but no one of its predecessors aimed to break the world record, as the goal was simply reforestation, gaining no popularity either in the country or in the world. As we can see in the picture, the gesture of the last emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, and Prime Minister Abiy are practically identical, but they have a different meaning in the context of their government and environmental policies. The policy of the imperial government, which even in 1955 had introduced the principle of conservation into the constitution, focused on agriculture sector development for domestic consumption and export, converting the national forest into agricultural land to the extent that the forest was reduced to 3 million hectares from 60 million hectares between 1937 and early 60s. However, in the case of Abiy, the campaign was strongly tied to his image like a green leader. His impressive amount of photos, representation of him owing, planting alone or with people. And this image have a symbolic content, as you can see at the right of the slide. A little over a year after his ascension as Ethiopian Prime Minister, the gesture of planting new trees eloquently represented Abiy's desire to tie his mandate to the country rebirth. Like we have seen, the Ethiopian vision as green, sustainable, modern, capable of capturing aid and international resources for which there is so much competition among developing countries, showing its ecological commitment is not new, is in a strong continuity with the previous policies. But Abiy conveying that old content in a simple, powerful language, giving the green projector greater resonance, but ending up scaling it back. Not undertaking a real change in agricultural practice. Moreover, in proposing Green Legacy campaign in 2020, so the second edition, Abiy went further. He wanted to mobilize the entire Ethiopian people. The Prime Minister launched a telephone campaign in which he invited people to plant trees, replacing the record incoming voice of each call with advice to prevent the COVID-19 spread. An invasion of daily life, the creation of direct relationship with the population by speaking directly to their hair. Finally, in June 2021, Green Legacy Days just preceded the election, and it became even more evident how the Ethiopian's renaissance was linked to the choice of his party and leadership, as can be seen from Prime Minister tweets in recent weeks and the image chosen to represent the exercise of the right to vote. Once again, nature is not in the foreground. It's not policy's focus and objective, as can be seen from the motto used, "Let's adorn," according to a vision of nature as a corollary and accessory, which has dominated so much literature, arts, and philosophy. Nature becomes instrument for the embellishment of the whole country, for the removal of the ugliness linked to regional, ethnic, religious, sex divisions. To conclude, Ethiopia's biggest and most bursting green programs, CRGE and Green Legacy, although very different, actually hide behind a powerful rhetoric the very absence of what should be celebrated and protected, the condition sine qua non without which the country's future is impossible, natural resources and farmers. Thanks for your attention.